Sean, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, sir.
You bet. I'm glad to have you on. You know, I'm not sure of anybody's position, because the smart people, like I think you are asking questions and not coming out with these bold declarations. They're just asking questions, and sometimes their own response, at least mine is, it's very nuanced. And I'm not recommending anything. I'm asking questions, and I'm warning about the mistakes of the past. I don't trust anybody. But I also think a nuclear-armed Iran is really bad, but I want Israel to take care of it. I don't want to be involved in that. It's their direct threat right now. Let them take care of it. Where do we go from here? What questions should we be asking ourselves, Sean?
Yeah, I love your approach to it, because it doesn't start with a conclusion. It's kind of trying to build what we should be doing from the bottom up, which becomes a discussion of first principles, and I think that's really important. I think we probably all agree that we don't want bad people, and we don't want our enemies to have weapons they could use to destroy us or our friends. I think probably everyone agrees on that. We probably...
Well, can I add a caveat to that? Not just our enemies, but especially those who are bat crap crazy, or believe in the return of the Mahdi, and I can hasten his return by washing the world in blood. That puts you in a special category for me. But anyway, go ahead.
And I think I might even extend it. I'm not even sure I want our friends and allies to have them. In a perfect world, we would be the only country with these massive weapons.
Okay. All right. I'll go for that. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So the problem we have is that, for, let's call it 80 years, 75, the nuclear toothpaste has been out of the tube. Soviets got it, then it's expanded elsewhere. India, Pakistan, North Korea, France, Israel, South Africa for a time. They all had nukes. And to me, the big problem that I have a really difficult time wrapping my head around is, how do you solve the problem we created with Gaddafi in Libya?
Yes.
That country gave up their weapons program voluntarily after Iraq, kind of before Iraq became an utter debacle and a cautionary tale. But they gave up their weapons, and the U.S. and NATO and our allies, we returned the favor, thanks to Hillary and Obama, by overthrowing Gaddafi and killing him. And I think what that communicated to every leader on earth, good or bad, was that if you don't want to ever be overthrown, you have to have nuclear weapons. And so I start with understanding that fact. What is the best, most effective way to make sure our enemies don't get nuclear weapons? And I'll tell you, I don't have a good answer, because we've heard for 40 years that Iran's on the verge of a nuke. They're about to get a nuke. They're about to have a weapon. Yeah. So let's assume we go through with these attacks and we bomb Fort Al, or Israel bombs it. What that doesn't get rid of is the incentive. It temporarily gets rid of a mechanism for, I guess, enriching uranium. But in 4 years or 5 years, how do we deal with that? I don't think regime change is a great idea, because we've seen how well that works. It turns into an unmitigated disaster. And so I think we just have to start with the question, what is the best possible way to incentivize people we don't like and don't like us to not have weapons? And I genuinely don't have a good answer to it.
You know what? I keep thinking every day I do this job, and I think what Reagan said when I was a kid. He said, there's going to come a time, and he was talking about Social Security at the time, but I apply it now to everything. There's going to come a time where we've made so many mistakes, there won't be a good solution to anything. Every choice will be a bad choice. And I think we're here. Everything we do, you're like, I don't know. I don't want to do the mistakes of the past, but I don't know how to stop this now. Regime change. Let me just take that one. Regime change. It doesn't work. I loved your post. I think it was yesterday. Yes, our military-industrial complex lied about Vietnam, killed Kennedy, ran a coup against Nixon, then killed another Kennedy, tried to get MLK Jr. to kill himself, ran drugs through the Americas to fund shenanigans in the Middle East, funded bin Laden and the Taliban, missed 9/11, then lied about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, got an ambassador murdered in Benghazi, then turned Libya into a slave market run by terrorists, then created ISIS, ran the Russian collusion hoax, tried to overthrow Trump with the Ukrainian hoax, weaponized a bat virus that killed millions of people, then lied about it, and then used the virus they made to steal an election. Then arrest Trump, tried to bankrupt him, tried to make him die in prison. And then when they failed, they denied him adequate security, leading him to be shot in the head. Yeah, they did all of those things. The drug cartels, Iraq, Bosnia in the 1990s, Iraq and Afghanistan in the 2000s, still Iraq and Afghanistan in 2010, plus Libya, the whole moronic Arab Spring thing, Ukraine in the 2020s. These were all disasters that cost millions of dollars and countless lives. You're right on every single one of those things. Every single one of those things. So how do we make a decision now?
Right, and that's why I think it's so important to get to first principles, which is understanding our limitations, understanding history, understanding how other nations view things. One thing that's driven me nuts in the foreign policy debates that we've had in this country for 20, 30 years is there seems to be zero desire to put ourselves in the position of our adversaries or our opponents and think, how are they looking at things? You know, some people, if you try to do that, they'll say, "Oh, well, you're sympathizing with them, or you're appeasing." Well, no, this is the basic stuff for negotiation. If you're playing chess against someone, you want to understand what they're going to do next, so you can respond to it. And we just never do that. And I guess so. I look at this. I think there's probably two major options for either forestalling or preventing a particular regime from getting weapons. The first one is regime change. In the short term, you can tell yourself, we're going to go overthrow these people, and then they won't want nukes anymore because we'll put our friends in, and then that'll be good. Well, that's been ongoing in Iran for 100 years. You know, the Brits and the Soviets are the ones who came in and put the original Shah in. It's been a mess over there. So personally, I throw regime change out the window because it opens up Pandora's box of just insanity, as we've seen in the Middle East.
Okay, hang on just a sec. Wait, on that. Is there a chance that, because I never saw it. I kept saying, when we went into war in Iraq and Afghanistan, show me the person that's, going to have their face on the stamp. Show me the person that's going to have their face on the money. I never saw anybody stand up and say, we need to be free and we're going to fight for our own freedom. You do have those people that are really tired of this, that are much more Western. I don't want to get involved in a regime change, and I certainly don't want to say, hey, we're going to help you pick a leader. Oh, my God. But is there a chance that this time it is different, or is that just wishful, stupid thinking?
I think it's probably wishful thinking, but I don't know. I'll tell you, I have a hard enough time figuring out what's going on politically in my own country. Think about all the time we spent poring over polls over every election and talking to our neighbors. This is a country we were born in. We understand its culture without even thinking about it. We're fluent in the language. We can talk to anyone we want whenever we want. And we have a tough time figuring out what's going on here. I don't have a clue what's happening in Iran. I don't speak, any of the, 3 or 4 different languages over there. I don't understand the culture. I've never been there. I'm not able to talk to people there. I don't know how to read the news there. And so the idea that I or really any other Westerner can look at Iran and with any confidence say what the people want or don't want, I think is crazy. And so I think you kind of have to be humble about your ignorance. And we are largely ignorant of just about everything happening within Iran and its culture and its people.
I have to say, I think you're right on that. Okay, so that's out. So what's the next thing?
Yeah, so we've kind of set aside regime change, probably not a great idea. Another option is maybe economic incentives. Yeah, we know you don't want to be overthrown. That's going to be a hard incentive to overcome. So you're going to want nukes as regime change insurance. Maybe we can bribe you out of it. All kinds of economic assurances and this and that. The problem with Iran is that they're sitting on oil, which is probably the most precious and important natural resource on earth. I don't think that works. And so I think what we're left with is probably the whack-a-mole that's been going on for years. And I think the nation that's probably best suited to deal with that whack-a-mole, they're the ones at risk. Iran can't reach us here in the U.S. They don't have the ballistic missile capability. They're not a direct military threat to us. They're clearly a military threat to our friends and allies in the Middle East. And so I think the least worst option is probably Israel doing what it does every 5 to 10 years and going and trying to degrade their ability to, mechanically make this stuff, wait to see what happens, do it again over and over and over. But to me, that's a regional issue. And yes, there are allies, and yes, there are friends, but it's far more consequential to them than it is to us. And so I have no problem with them doing what they need to do to address the threats to them.
So I'm with you 100% so far. Now, I'm very, we are the only ones with the bunker buster that could get into that. I mean, I think that, what does that go down? 12 stories, 20 stories? 20 stories underground. You can destroy anything with a 20-story footprint underground. We're the only ones that have it. It has to be dropped from one of our planes. And I'm very uncomfortable with that. Very uncomfortable. I mean, you know what? You want to buy the bunker buster? I'll sell it to you, but you got to drop it. Once we put that on our plane and we drop it, aren't we then part of the war?
Right, and that, like I said, that might be the least worst option to the extent we have to be involved.
Yes.
But I think when it comes to foreign policy, I think a lot about what Mike Tyson said, that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Once you go and drop a bomb on someone, once you engage in offensive military capabilities, now you may rhetorically say, well, it's preemptively defensive. It's an offensive move whenever you bomb another country. You are creating the conditions for all kinds of chaos. Who knows how they're going to respond? Maybe they're rational and they understand, look, we're just going to have to take this one on the chin. We don't want to fight with the U.S. We don't want to fight with Israel. We're just going to deal with it. Or maybe they decide, hey, we were in the middle of negotiations and we thought we were trying to get somewhere. And if they're just going to do this stuff to us, then, to heck with it. We're just going to unleash hell. That can happen. Now, I don't know if it will. It's probably less likely than them just taking it, but it's a possibility. Whenever you go and punch someone in the face, now have to deal with the consequences of how they're going to respond.
Jason, I had you look up in the break preemptive strikes. Is that something new? Because I know that's but my age maybe. I don't remember people saying we got to preemptively strike more than when the nukes started coming in. That's when everybody was like, you got to do it before they get one. Is this a new thing, or has this been going on forever?
Well, I want to start off with saying I'm so glad for Sean and having this conversation because it is sorely needed right now.
It is.
So bad. There's a weird irony with preemptive or preventative strikes because the first modern preventive strike in, looking at the Cold War era was the start of the 6-Day War when Egypt blockaded Israel, massed 100,000 troops.
Wow.
Then Israel did the first modern preemptive strike. If they would not have, they would not be here right now. So it's just another coal in the fire, really, for, what is the red line and allowing something like this to happen?
Sean, what is the red line? Is there a red line?
For us or for Israel?
Any society, is there a red line? I think the answer for Israel is a lot sooner than ours, but is there such a thing as a red line to go first and preemptively strike?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. It's so situational that I would have a hard time saying right now, this is a red line that satisfies all conditions for all nations. How
about just for Israel right now?
For Israel, I would think it would be a delivery mechanism and the actual developed warhead. That's probably what I would look at. Can this enemy nation at this moment deliver a nuclear warhead to us right now? That's what I would say is the red line. But you know what? I haven't had a country trying to wipe me off the earth for the last 80 years, 75 years. So
5,000.
Right. But hard for me, just given my position to know exactly what theirs is. For the U.S., I'd say it's probably close to the same thing, an ability to attack the U.S. people. Now, you'll hear from the Pentagon and people saying, well, they can hurt our troops in the region. My view is, well, that's probably a good reason to not be meddling in other regions all the time because you're putting your people at risk.
Sean, thank you so much. What a great conversation. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being reasonable, rational, and allowing people to disagree and learn from our disagreements. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it.
You're very gracious. Thank you, sir.
You bet.